Dinghai Fusheng Records. End chapter. Chapter 100. Migration. By then, Fu Jian said, Zhen would certainly turn into your puppet and live under your control as you manipulate my strings. Wang Zi laughed aloud. Fu Jian na, Fu Jian. Until now, you're still trying to guess the intention of gods with the heart of a mortal. Our Lord is the ancient demon god, the master of the human world, and all mortals are but insignificant ants in his eyes. Why would he bother with taking control of a nest of ants? Fu Jian was stunned. Wang Zi continued, Our Lord has no interest in this age-old empire of yours. Once we have accomplished our objective, it will be returned to you, and you can be the bright ruler of this divine land for as long as you wish. Fu Jian frowned. What on earth does he want? Wang Zi, he wants you to create enough resentment for him, and to get a magical artifact. It's a ring, the relic left behind after the Dinghai pearl broke. Once he has it, my lord will then leave this world and fulfill the wish that he has harbored for thousands of years, to return to the past and wipe away the stain of humiliation. Since he wouldn't be in this time anymore, how would he be able to manipulate you? Fu Jian was silent in thought. Wang Zi said, I'll give you 2 hours to think about it. Fu Jian, there's no time to lose. If you're willing, drink this cup of devil god's blood and willingly become the emperor appointed to the human world by our Lord. Wang Zi raised his hand, and a small cup flew over and landed in Fu Jian's hand. Fu Jian grasped that cup tightly, his brows furrowing as he remained silent. At that moment, I will open up the defense wall, and you'll continue recalling your troops to prepare for your southern conquest, Wang Zi finished in a low voice. Fu Jian replied coldly, What if Zhen refuses? Wang Zi sighed with regret. Then, I'll have no choice but to refine you into a new drought fiend king. Once you've lost all rationality, your subordinates will disperse and follow that great Chan Yu, Shulukong. Those words struck Fu Jian's sore spot, and the anger that appeared on his face was barely perceptible. You know what situation you're facing too, Wang Zi said with a smile. The first day I arrived at your side, I did remind you, Your Majesty. The Great Qin appears to be an iron wall, but the clans within all have their own plans. Isn't the woman behind you the best example of that? Fu Jian's hand that was still holding onto the cup shook slightly. Sima Wei walked over to the platform. He removed the sabers from his back and stabbed them both into a crack between the bricks, then stuck talismans all over them to seal this place for the time being. Chen Xing waited outside the periphery. He glanced at the sky, holding his breath. Then, Sima Wei leapt onto the high platform in a few steps and jumped up from behind the wooden column. He flung out a hook that wrapped around Princess King He's waist. When Fu Jian turned around to look at Princess King He, her eyes were wide with surprise. The hook around her waist tugged on her and she was dragged down from the platform. Wang Zi! Wang Zi snapped out of it at once and shouted, Who's there? The 5 drought fiend kings all crouched at the same time and pursued Princess King He, who was still falling. From afar, Princess King He's yell could be heard. Chen Xing ordered, Now! Chen Xing urged the heart lamp, then smacked Feng Qunjun's back with one hand. Feng Qunjun focused all his attention into activating Senluo Wangxiang. 1,000 steps away, Senluo Wangxiang burst into black flames and instantly transformed, then began sucking in the resentment within the defensive wall like crazy. At that moment, a hint of madness could be seen in Feng Qunjun's eyes. His eyes flashed with a red glint as he roared in anger. Up! Chen Xing helped Feng Qunjun protect his heart meridian with the heart lamp. Senluo Wangxiang activated, a pitch-black giant tree began growing from below the high platform, soaring into the sky. As it grew, it broke through the balcony of Vyang Palace, which immediately collapsed. The demon spear flew out, leaving a trail of black smoke in its wake as it drew an arc across the sky and fell towards the northeast corner. The divine artifact fell, the array broke, and the black barrier instantly disappeared with a buzz. The Qin army general, who had been waiting all along, began leading the army to charge in. Go! Chen Xing shouted. Everyone responded to his call. They crossed the royal palace's walls and came to blows with the hundreds of thousands of drought fiend soldiers. A strong ray of light broke through the gloomy resentment, and that was when Wang Zi knew trouble had knocked on his door. He jumped into the air, made a gesture with his hand, and the demon spear flew up. Xiao Shan brandished both his claws. Lightning turned into a thunderstorm and struck the ground, clearing the path that was filled with living corpses. Xian had bombs in both hands as his talisman transformed into a flying bird, then he lit the drought fiend herd on fire with his blazing trail. Tuobayan had already led the imperial guards to charge into the royal palace, shouting, "Rescue His Majesty!" Sima Wei carried Princess King He as he leapt down the high platform. Feng Yunjun rushed forward, shouting, "Leave it to me!" Feng Yunjun summoned Sen Luo Wangxiang, the bloody glare in his eyes disappearing as it simmered down. With the array broken, resentment began spreading over the entirety of Chang'an. The drought fiends were rushing out uncontrollably. "Go," Chen Xing said. "Xiang Shu, snatch it back." Chen Xing lit up the heart lamp. When he pressed it in from afar, Xiang Shu's entire body burst with a bright light, and he transformed into a god of war dressed in a suit of golden armor. His gilded white robe fluttered in the air. He stepped forward, a buzz ringing out from under his war boots, and runes glowing with golden light appeared in the air. Xiang Shu stepped through the rune and flew into the air. He turned around and another golden rune appeared. Several floating runes shattered, then came together to form a golden dragon that carried him through the air. When he arrived in front of Wang Zi, Xiang Shu's long hair had shortened into a bed of short hair that fluttered in the wind. Bright light encircled his breastplate, war skirt, war boots, and arm guards, as if a blazing sun had just erupted in the sky. Wang Zi sneered. Xiang Shu made a circle with both hands, then, without using any weapons, he slashed through Wang Zi's face with his left palm while he held the demon spear with his right. "Wang Zi, you're too late." The demon spear burst with black flames that receded and covered Xiang Shu's whole body. Chen Xing. When Chen Xing was about to urge the heart lamp, the demon spear shook, Xiang Shu's hands started dripping with blood in an instant, and he let out an angry roar. Wang Zi grabbed the demon spear and whirled around in the air, then brought Xiang Shu along as he dove to the ground. Xiang Shu was falling from the sky as he headed straight down. Startled, Chen Xing's pupils contracted in an instant. However, Xiang Shu let go of the demon spear. With his feet in the air as his head faced the ground, he quickly flipped over the air and slammed onto the ground with both feet, his knees bending to absorb the impact. "I can't get it!" Xiang Shu shouted. Chen Xing didn't know what to do now either. Xiang Shu yelled, "Give me mana! Don't get distracted! I'll give it another try!" Wang Zi held the demon spear in his hand. He turned his head to look at Chen Xing. Knowing Chen Xing was his true target, he immediately dove down and rushed headlong at Chen Xing. Xiang Shu crouched and shot over like an arrow. Within the blink of an eye, he was behind Wang Zi. He stepped forcefully onto Wang Zi's back and kicked him so hard he smashed onto the ground below. Then, he rushed over to stand in front of Chen Xing, empty-handed, holding up his palms one in front of the other in a defensive stance as bright light burst from his whole body to protect Chen Xing behind him. "So cool! He's really too cool!" These were the only words in Chen Xing's heart now. "Oh my god! My martial god! How can he be such a cool martial god? What do we do now?" Xiang Shu looked back with worry. I don't know either," Chen Xing said. "Ah! What do we do?" Xiang Shu didn't know what to do with Chen Xing. "Where's Kajera?" Shi Has host had already died from Xiang Shu's kick. Without a corporeal form, Shi Hai turned into his soul form and flew into the air, then summoned the demon spear over and grabbed it. In the current situation, it was obvious both sides were at an impasse. Chen Xing's mind was racing, but Shi Hai didn't want to continue fighting with Xiang Shu any longer, so he held out the demon spear horizontally and said in a low voice, "Come, let's see just how strong you are in front of my army." Resentment exploded. In an instant, all of the drought fiends in the palace began regrouping under the orders of the 5 drought fiend kings. They turned towards Xiang Shu and Chen Xing as they prepared their assault. Xiang Shu dared not continue pursuing Wang Zi. He took a deep breath, then stood in front of Chen Xing. 100,000, Xiang Shu said in a low voice. "Can I break past them?" Chen Xing, "That depends on you." Wang Zi, who was floating in the sky, made a gesture. Chen Xing immediately hugged Xiang Shu from behind tightly. The army rushed over, looking like it could topple mountains and overturn seas. Xiang Shu bent down a little. Within this tide, Chen Xing pushed the heart lamp to its limits. Bright light shone around the two of them, and a shock wave swept outward that immediately knocked down the charging drought fiend army. Chen Xing was already feeling dizzy. Xiang Shu turned to look. After the heart lamp circulated through his body, a light dragon burst forth that curled around the two of them and spit out dragon flames at its surroundings, burning down all of the drought fiends in front of Vyang Palace. Shi Hai. Shi Hai was about to find an opportunity to rush into the battlefield and stab the demon spear through both of their hearts when a voice rang out from behind him. "We meet again, have you been well?" Xian had actually rushed to the top of Vyang Palace with Xiao Shan and Feng Qianjun. All three of them made a move at the same time, smashing Shi Hai into the ground. Holding the demon spear, Shi Hai fell like a black meteor. Under the explosion of resentment, the palace walls were shattered into powder. The charging drought fiend troops had lost their commander and instantly descended into chaos. "Sholokong!" Fu Jian shouted. Xiang Shu kept his bright flames and grabbed Chen Xing's wrist as he stepped back. Fu Jian had already rushed over while he was under Tuba Yan's protection. He yelled, "Catch Wang Zi for Zhen!" "We don't know where he ran off to." Chen Xing shouted. Xian and Xiao Shan rushed over. Feng Qianjun, who was grabbing Princess King He's wrist, dashed over as well and met up with the other three. Xiang Shu said, "I can't get that weapon, can we destroy it?" Chen Xing said, No, let me think about it, there must be a way." "There's no more time." Xiang Shu grabbed Chen Xing. "Just like the yin-yang mirror, magical artifacts will shatter when they collide with each other. Think of a way to destroy it." Resentment billowed, then congregated at the top of Vyang Palace into Shi Hai's form. In a low voice Shi Hai said, "Your Majesty, have you thought it through? Or should I leave Chang'an to you, and let you slowly think about it?" Xiang Shu suddenly looked at Fu Jian, a hint of evasion could be seen in Fu Jian's eyes. "Tuba Yan! Take me to Ofang Palace!" Fu Jian shouted. "Leave this place first." "No," Xiang Shu refused. "There are too many drought fiends. If they escape from Chang'an and spread across the entire central plains, who will take responsibility for that?" Fu Jian said, "Let them go to the south then, someone will deal with them there." Shi Hai shook the demon spear. All 5 drought fiend kings received the order at once. They gathered the massive drought fiend troop in Chang'an, readying them to break through the city and head south. Chen Xing suddenly thought of something and said, "Shi Hai." Shi Hai looked back. Chen Xing yelled, "Have you seen this?" Then, Chen Xing raised the white tiger pennant. Spiritual qi began to surge as it got sucked into the white tiger pennant. The pennant flashed, then a white tiger flew out and dashed past the drought fiend herd and into the sky. 200,000 or so drought fiends immediately lost control, leaving the drought fiend kings as they rushed towards the west gate of Chang'an city. "Shi Hai, my drought fiends! Go!" Chen Xing ordered. Xiang Shu mounted a horse, then grabbed Chen Xing and pulled him to sit in front. Chen Xing held the white tiger pennant as Xiang Shu controlled the horse, and they rushed to Chang'an city's west gate. Blowing a fuse, Shi Hai flew across the sky to chase them. You're drought fiends. Xian laughed aloud, ha 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 ha. Shihai. Under the control of the White Tiger Pennant, the 200,000 drought fiend troops rushed onto the highway towards Ofang Palace along the path in Xiangshu's plan. It was quite a sight to behold, with the sea of drought fiend troops charging forward, while 5 drought fiend kings followed from behind and a flying Shihai chased from above. It was as if their sheep herd was scuttling about in fright, and they couldn't help but chase them as they ran about yelling. Also chasing after them were Murong Chui and the rest, who had come forward to annihilate the drought fiends. Fu Jian shouted, "What are you guys trying to do? Listen to me." Xiangshu turned back. "You'll know when we get there." Chen Xing held up the White Tiger Pennant as he shouted, "Don't just look. Get rid of as many as you can." Xian, Feng Yunjun, and Xiao Shan steered their horses to gallop behind Xiangshu and Chen Xing, then each released their own magic. Feng Yunjun said to Princess King He, "Control the horse." Princess King He shook the reins. Jie. A bolt of lightning was released from time to time, and flying sand and rocks were stirred up. At the same time, Feng Yunjun was led by Princess King He, and they made a big round around the periphery. Xiangshu and Chen Xing continued leading the drought fiend troops towards Ofang Palace. The Qin army had been waiting for a long time by the bank of Zayashui, and they began hurling rocks and shooting kerosene. Feng Yunjun released Sen Luo Wangxiang. He sped through the periphery, turned back, and withdrew his weapon perfectly. Brambles shot up from the earth that grew to several Dinghai, forming a trap to seal off the retreat route of the drought fiends. Chen Xing kept the White Tiger Pennant, then shook the Zuyu Pennant that calmed battles. The drought Phi and hurt scattered in an instant. Governor of Pingyang has arrived. Murong Chong is here. Over on the horizon, Murong Chong and his Pingyang infantry were charging over. They always cause such a big fanfare when they appear, Chen Xing murmured. Fu Jian went to the periphery of the encirclement, only to see sparks fill the air. There was already a sea of fire within the trap. Hundreds of thousands of drought fiends had been dealt with once again by Xiangshu and Chen Xing, and Murong Chong joined the fray as well. Shihai chased them to Ofang Palace. The drought fiend troops that he had gathered with painstaking effort had all been tricked away by Chen Xing and burned up. Only the 5 drought fiend kings were left. That was when he finally realized he could not contend with Chen Xing, so he could only give up and stop his pursuit. Chen Xing looked up at the sky. Shihai had turned into a black meteor that streaked across the sky towards the northwest. 5 drought fiend kings rose from the ground and flew away with him. Feng Guang Er! Fu Jian shouted. Murong Chong led his huge army to wait outside the battlefield. It was as if a grand sacrificial ceremony was taking place in front of Ofang Palace. Flames surged into the sky, and both banks of Zayashui River were filled with spectating soldiers and common people. Kajera escaped, Xiangshu said to Chen Xing in front of him. "We didn't snatch the sword you wanted." "It's okay." Chen Xing asked worriedly, "How's your hand?" He looked back to see Xiangshu's palm. Xiangshu held his hand out, he wasn't injured. When he had transformed into the martial god, the wounds on his body only appeared for a moment before healing rapidly. "We'll have to think of something else," Chen Xing said with a little anxiety. "It actually recognizes an owner." "Don't tell me it recognizes Shihai as its owner." Ba. Fu Jian's face was black with soot. He let out a sigh in irritation. All the generals had arrived. "Your Majesty! Your general is late in coming to rescue Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Forget it!" Fu Jian shouted in irritation. "Shulakong!" Xiangshu was engaged in a muted conversation with Chen Xing. When he heard that, he looked towards Fu Jian. Fu Jian said, "Since we have a way to command the drought fiends, we could have kept them alive. Why didn't you listen to Zhen's orders?" Chen Xing sensed some danger. When he linked it to when Shihai said slowly, "Think about it," could it be that Wang Zi had persuaded Fu Jian? Previously, how did Wang Zi convince Fu Jian to give in? Orders. Raising an eyebrow, Xiang Shu questioned Fu Jian, who are you ordering? The leader of the tribes. Do you know who you're talking to? Xiang Shu's shout shook the air, and out of instinct everyone around them retreated slightly. Fu Jian was stunned at once, then he looked at Xiang Shu with a complicated expression. Leading his troops forward, Murong Chong stood behind Xiang Shu. The Hu infantry began gathering, and within an instant, two huge camps appeared in front of Ofang Palace, separated by an invisible barrier. Fu Rong went forward and whispered something to Fu Jian. The wildfire on the plains began to settle down, turning into ashes that swept across the land, flying by in front of Fu Jian and Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu said to a Hu, has Fei Tian Ye been sent away? Great Chanyu, he's already on his way, that person answered. The dog? Xiang Shu asked. The dog is here. That person handed over Chen Xing's dog. Chen Xing thought that Xiang Shu was truly brilliant and quickly accepted the dog. After listening to Fu Rong's report, Fu Jian replied angrily and got ready to turn and leave. Fu Rong instructed, take Princess King He away. Great Chanyu, please return to Ofang Palace. His Majesty has something else he'd like to discuss with you. Suddenly, Feng Yunjun raised his voice, Fu Jian. King He lost her family when she was 14, and you abducted her into your palace. The humiliation she suffered can't be explained in just a few words. She did have the intent to kill you, but her people were in your hands as hostages, so she dared not act rashly. Now, Wang Zi had asked her to murder you time and again, yet she never agreed. She doesn't love you, but she has never harmed you either. Just let bygones be bygones. Princess King He's voice trembled, Yunjun. Feng Yunjun added, the great Chanyu has pardoned Princess King He and my brother, Feng Yunyi, for their crimes. If His Majesty has nothing else to say, then let them go ba. Murong Chong's expression changed in an instant. He looked at Murong Chui, and Murong Chui made an almost indiscernible movement. Fu Jian stopped his horse. Everyone stared at his back until he turned around again. Shulukong, Fu Jian said. Why don't you be the emperor? Xiang Shu said, forget it, I'm not interested. Absolutely furious, Fu Jian shouted, Tuibayan, Murong Chui. Seize all of them. Within an instant, the Hu behind Xiang Shu went into an uproar, yet Chen Xing and Xian weren't surprised at all. With the relationship between the ancient Qi Le covenant and the Qin court, this day was bound to come sooner or later. Murong Chong shouted, who dares to make a move? Fu Jian murmured, Feng Guang Er. Murong Chong said, Your Majesty, if you're hell-bent on killing my sister, then Murong Chong will take you on to the end. Both sides stood still in confrontation. Xiang Shu said, you're on your own, Fu Jian. Goodbye. Xiang Shu whistled. The Pingyang army split into two, then Xiang Shu led Chen Xing to gallop through them. Then, Xian and the rest followed from behind, as well as the other Hu, and lastly, Murong Chong. All of them left the plains of Zayashui in great Kale Fair. Resentment dissipated, the sky was blue, and it was a clear and sunny day for miles. On this midsummer day, the path was filled with a verdant green. The Hu steered their carriages and waited by the road, carrying Feng Yunyi inside, who had escaped Ofang Palace first. Chen Xing looked back. Xiang Shu's 16 Hu tribesmen, Xian, Xiao Shan, Feng Yunjun, Princess King He, as well as Murong Chong's Pingyang army were all right behind, and he couldn't see the end of them on the highway north to Chang'an. When he turned back, Chen Xing and Xiang Shu's breaths intermingled. Xiang Shu looked down at Chen Xing. There seemed to be more people than before. Chen Xing saw Feng Yunjun stuff Sima Wei into a carriage to hide there with Feng Yunyi, so he smiled at Feng Yunjun. Feng Yunjun checked up on his brother's condition before mounting his horse again. He replied with a smile, yet. Xiao Shan asked, are we going back to Chi Chuan now? Surprised, Xiang Shu asked, you're from Chi Chuan, too. Xiao Shan glanced at him, then at Chen Xing. He didn't reply. Chen Xing asked, we're not singing today. Xiang Shu was baffled. Sing. Chen Xing smiled. Chi Chuan. Xiao Shan sang along, under the Yin Mountains. Everyone was galloping across the plains on their horses, one faster than the other. Feng Qianjun dashed to the front and caught up to Princess King He. Princess King He's mellow voice sang, the sky resembles an arched hut, covering the whole plain. Xiang Shu sang as well, the sky is so vast and blue, the wilderness is boundless too. Behind them, tens of thousands of people were on the move. When the winds blow, the grass bends low, cattle and sheep will show. The dog was tucked in the saddlebag, its tongue sticking out as it panted. It bumped up and down as the horse galloped, and looked at its surroundings with curiosity. A phoenix unfurled its wings and flew past the front of the group. The Great Wall stood tall at the end of the world. Even after withstanding 1,000 years of rain and storm, it still looked the same. Just like a fence around the sky, the wall around the earth, winds of ancient times blew past the wall and stirred up the fresh scent of the grass and seas that flew within. And behind that massive, grey ancient wall was a mountain range that stretched for tens of thousands of miles like a divine dragon, its gleaming scales like the lakes of the sea, and sheep were scattered on its grass like pearls. Under the night sky that covered the plains like a dome, footprints twinkled with a glow. And Chen Xing's group naturally turned into one protector, one phoenix, one human, one child, one dog, one drought fiend, and one xian, and they were all heading for Chi Chuan. Set out. End of Volume 4. Dinghai Tide.
Dinghai Fusheng Records. Volume 5 Guanzhou Ruzhu. Chapter 101. Plan. On this night during the transition from late summer to the beginning of autumn, the radiant, lustrous flock of stars outside the Great Wall coincided with the pulse of heaven, and together, they made up the vast expanse of the Milky Way that streaked across the sky. The armies were all gathered around the campfires that were set up everywhere. While looking at the map in full detail, Chen Xing counted on his fingers and calculated that the first time around, he had arrived in Chi Chuan just before the Autumn Close Festival. At their current speed, he would be able to reach Chi Chuan as early as the start of autumn. If he left for Karakoram and then to Karasha afterward, adding the time needed to go back and forth, most likely, he would be there in time to celebrate the Autumn Close Festival in Chi Chuan. Facing one side of the campfire, a simple, open-air royal tent was set up. Xiang Shu was sitting on a stone that was covered by a blanket, facing a stove with boiling water as he cut some ginseng with a small dagger. The gentle scent of the ginseng tea soon started to permeate the air. The puppy was already fast asleep by Chen Xing's feet, while Xiao Shan rested his head on Chen Xing's thigh as he slept inside the tent. Ever since he had met Chen Xing, Xiao Shan had stuck by his side, sticking closely with not even a kun apart from him as if that was just a matter of course. At first, Xiang Shu had felt that this child was clingy, but he also didn't want to scold him. There were some faint contradictory feelings in his heart. Originally, he had wanted to tell him to get lost and leave. However, from the beginning, Xiao Shan had called him Gag several times in a familiar way, and Xiang Shu somehow didn't feel any disdain toward it. On the third night after leaving Chang'an, under the Great Wall, Murong Chong and Princess King He came over. Xiang Shu hinted that they pour themselves some ginseng tea to drink on their own. Not a moment later, several more people also arrived, Xian, Feng Qianjun, as well as Feng Qianyi, who was carried by the latter. Murong Chong, the Four Seas and the Prairies are all the great Chanyus. Guowang's tired of listening, Xiang Shu interrupted. Just get straight to the point, quit beating around the bush. Princess King He smiled. We've talked about it, Feng Qianjun could only say, and following this, we still decided to split up. Chen Xing raised his eyes to look at Xian. Xian looked solemn as he gave him a nod and said, in the end, leaving Jiankong for too long is not a good idea. I can rest assured now that I've seen that you people are all right. Chen Xing knew that Xian needed to return, and so, after pondering silently for a moment, he nodded. Will Xie Shixian go alone? Xiangshu took a glance at Xian who said, I'm planning to bring Qinyi to the south. Qinjun will still follow you all. Since Xiangshu didn't say anything, Chen Xing gave him another nod and said, for Xin Yuanping and Wen Chei's matter, I'll have to trouble Shixian. Taking the ginseng tea, Princess Qinghe held the silver cup with both of her hands, lost in her thoughts. After a while, she softly said, all of you, thank you. Great Chanyu, thank you. Even though Xiangshu said nothing in return, he still gave a slight nod, indicating that he was aware. Feng Qinyi dared not to look Chen Xing in the eyes. When he was put down by his younger brother, he went down to the ground and kowtowed 3 times to Chen Xing and Xiangshu. Xiangshu was currently immersed in his own thoughts as he stared at the campfire. The hair framing his face, which was weaved into thin braids tied with golden threads, hung loose. His side profile was so handsome to the point that Chen Xing couldn't even take his eyes away from him. Yalasa, Xiangshu faintly said. You Han people have a saying, words are not enough to give thanks for a great favor. No need to be long-winded, go back and start anew. Go ba. Chen Xing said to Feng Qinyi, ultimately, Fujian will fight the great Jin. Go prepare well for that day. Feng Qinyi nodded his head, and Feng Qinjun once again carried his elder brother out. Still with a pretty smile, Princess Qinghe said, that I won't kowtow to you, great Chanyu. In my heart, you've always been like an older brother to me. Whatever suits you, Xiangshu casually said. Murong Chong. Murong Chong felt slightly uncomfortable, seeming to not want to spend much time in the presence of Xiangshu. He frowned deeply and looked at Chen Xing several times, before looking back at Xiangshu and giving out a and then a yes. Chen Xing knew that based on Murong Chong's temperament, he definitely wouldn't show anyone a pleasant expression most days of the week. Alas, Xiangshu had saved Princess Qinghe's life, so he had no alternative but to grin and bear it, and lower his head. Do you want to start a war with Fujian? Xiangshu raised his eyes and shot a glance at Murong Chong. I don't know, Murong Chong sighed before replying, I must return to Pingyang first, we'll see what happens next ba. Jiantu is unlikely to kill you, Xiangshu carelessly mentioned, and by now, he has most likely sent a messenger after you. Maybe the messenger will even arrive before you do. Murong Chong's brows continued to furrow. What he didn't want others to mention the most in his life was his relationship with Fujian. It was just, what Xiangshu had said was indeed the truth. Feng Qinjun went out to send his elder brother back before returning once more. It was obvious that he was waiting for them to finish explaining before saying what he still had on his mind. Xiangshu looked at Chen Xing and said, you decide ba. Chen Xing knew what Xiangshu meant by handing the decision to him. He had once told Xiangshu that there were a lot of things to do after arriving in Qi Li Chuan, and furthermore, there was also Zhou Zhen's reappearance. By bringing Princess Qinghe with them, would it just add to their troubles? Chen Xing gave another look at Feng Qinjun. Feng Dage will decide. ba. Xiangshu. Feng Qinjun wasn't answering at all. A moment later, Princess Qinghe softly asked, Qinjun. He didn't look at Princess Qinghe at all. In the end, he finally made a decision and said, you follow your younger brother and go back to Pingyang, he can protect you. Princess Qinghe forced a smile before nodding, turning around to follow Murong Chong out. When Feng Qinjun and Chen Xing looked at each other, it was as if Xiangshu received a clue about what was going on. As he moved his gaze toward the direction where Princess Qinghe had left, he seemingly understood and nodded his head. Have you thought it through? Chen Xing said, if you separate like this, there's a chance you won't see each other again for several years. N. Feng Qianjun nodded. What are you thinking about? Xiang Shu asked Chen Xing. Chen Xing suddenly thought of something and said, oh, right. Xiang Shu, can you bestow a marriage? The idea Chen Xing came up with was filled with schadenfreude. Since Fujian has the right to bestow a marriage, Xiang Shu should be able to as well. No. The great Chanyu is in charge of heaven and earth, as well as life and death, Xiang Shu said. From the beginning, Wang has never concerned himself with other families' matters. My own marriage hasn't even been talked about, so I'm unable to bestow any marriages, but if you like her, I'll personally go and open my mouth to make it clear. No, 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 Feng Qianjun said, I have another person I like in my heart. Thank you both. Chen Xing had originally thought that Feng Qianjun just couldn't muster up the courage to confess to Princess King He. He didn't expect that in the end, Feng Qianjun would actually choose Gu Qing, who was still in Jiangnan now. This made Chen Xing feel slightly moved. In our Qi Le Covenant, we have this festival called Autumn Close Festival, in which there's this activity, Xiang Shu said, where you can, with the person you like. She lives in Jiangnan, Feng Qianjun added. If there's a chance in the future, I'd like to bring her everywhere beyond the Great Wall. This time, I'll definitely. Forget it, ba. You don't seem to know each other just yet, N.E., Chen Xing said. Forgive me for saying this, but if by any chance, she doesn't like you, won't you be done for? Feng Qianjun suddenly smiled and replied, if so, I'll move next to the pharmacy. Every day, I'll occasionally watch her while she's pounding medicine for sick people inside, and also say some words to her. That'd also be great. Feng Qianjun and Chen Xing were talking about Gu Qing, but Xiang Shu, who also heard them, was just confused. At this moment, Xian came over as well. All right, Xian let out a sigh before continuing, there are some things we have to discuss clearly so I can depart at ease tomorrow. In these 3 days, everyone was thinking about one and the same question, now that the Akala blade had been snatched away and Shihai had escaped, what were they going to do next? Xiao Shan was still sleeping as before. Chen Xing said, Xiang Shu was unable to hold the Akala blade. That thing rejected him and has already been refined by resentment. This was yet another topic that pretty much puzzled Xiang Shu. He finally couldn't help but ask, why did you say that it was mine? Can you all speak in a way that is understandable to me for once? Chen Xing could only give him an explanation, that divine weapon's primary form is a broadsword, and we had wanted to fetch it for you to use. Xiang Shu said, so? What about it then? Chen Xing explained, legends said that it was the only thing that could kill Chu. How could it fall into Shihai's hands any? Thinking about this, the joy he felt at their reunion immediately became diluted, and he couldn't help but become irritated once more. Arg. Just what went wrong? Even though everything has been restarted, why is it still so annoying like this? What has been restarted? Xiang Shu asked once more. Xian and Feng Qianjun, with hearts full of palpitation, both observed Xiang Shu's expression for fear that another situation mirroring the previous time would erupt once again, which was the two of them talking normally one moment and then suddenly quarreling the next. However, Xian also found that Xiang Shu's temper seemed to be better this time around, he was more patient with Chen Xing, too. As he drank a cup of ginseng tea, Chen Xing turned fretful and said, in short, you have to get a hold of it, only then can you finish your task. That sword is an important weapon for you as the protector. Xiang Shu asked, I am the great and formidable Shulakong. Why do I have to use that sword? Can I not fight without it? Chen Xing, when dealing with Chu, it's useless to rely solely on those martial arts, even those who can catch white wolves with their bare hands. It should be can turn his unarmed hands into sharp blades. Xiang Shu felt annoyed. Chen Xing also lost his patience. I don't care, I just want it. Xiang Shu. All right, you two, stop quarreling. Xian and Feng Qianjun finally found the timing to say the sentence. Chen Xing suddenly realized that sometimes, it was more fruitful acting unreasonable than the other way around. Just like now, contrary to expectations, Xiang Shu actually stopped quarreling with him, and the question had turned from I want to get the sword in order to save the world, but the sword is gone, what to do now? To Chen Xing wants to get this sword, so we must think of a way to obtain it. The latter was clearly more crucial than the former, and it had successfully stirred Xiang Shu's thoughts from the rationality of the problem back to how to resolve the problem. If you have something to say, Xian hinted, why is it always like this? Does being noisy work ma? Chen Xing, it works Can't you see he's trying to find a way? Feng Qianjun. Xian patiently said, now that Shihai has fled northwest with the devil spear, can we still retrieve it? Everyone had seen it back then. Shihai, bringing along 5 drought fiend kings and 1 weapon, had run away leaving not a single trace. Xian continued, Liangzhou is. Forgive us, but that is truly a place beyond our reach, and we can only appeal to the great Chanyu to send scouts to search for Shihai's whereabouts. The most important thing right now is still the Akala blade. Chen Xing frowned. We can't even pinpoint his whereabouts. Where is he going to escape to? All along, I always thought that Shihai would run south. Xian shrugged, while Xiangshu was still deep in his thoughts. Feng Qianjun asked, or do you want me to go and investigate the situation in the northwest? While this discussion between Feng Qianjun and Xian was still ongoing, Xiangshu suddenly said seriously to Chen Xing, all right, no matter what kind of divine weapon that exactly is, now that it has been snatched away by the enemy, can we not forge another one? Chen Xing, This one sentence from Xiangshu instantly woke those 3 people up from their dreams. They looked at one another first before Chen Xing then said, you're right Xian said, this sword can't just be forged whenever you say you'd like it forged, protector. Xiangshu said, since people have done it before, naturally, we can also do the same. After thinking about it, Xian said, I do know the materials needed, it's just, they're too difficult to obtain. Xiangshu, just look for them. Chen Xing had originally been full of despair. If he couldn't find Shihai, he wouldn't be able to take back that demon spear. And if he couldn't take back that devil spear, he wouldn't be able to purify it. What's more, it was still extremely difficult to say whether it would transform back to Akala blade afterward. But what Xiangshu had said was correct, maybe they could forge another one After pondering for a while, Xian said, that seems to be one way forward. Since you've said so, I must go back as quickly as possible to Kuiji so I can look for all the records regarding the Akala blade. Chen Xing's heart thumped, he was afraid that Xian would say Kuiji Xiang family. But Xian, who had gone through decades worth of experience during his career as an official, had long ago become sophisticated. He knew not to say words that shouldn't be said. Thinking about that place, Xian continued, perhaps, there is still hope after all. I'll return at once and have a look, I'll inform you all immediately once there's some news. But, if nothing goes wrong, after the matter in Karasha has been resolved, you also ought to go down to Jiangnan. When the time comes, we'll meet again. And so, Xian got up. Feng Qianjun added, tomorrow, I'll be on my way northwest to Liangzhou to investigate Shihai's movements, so I'm not going to say goodbye. Chen Xing finished his ginseng tea after everyone had dispersed, yet all night long, he just tossed and turned around, unable to get some sleep. He couldn't help but steal a glance at Xiangshu who was at the other end of the tent, there was no sign of movement from the other party. Sometimes, Chen Xing became very curious. Xiangshu spoke so little every day, what exactly was he thinking? Just like at this moment, Was he thinking about the people of Chi Le Chuan, or about Chi Hai, or the matter regarding Chu? Was it possible that deep inside his heart, he also occasionally recalled the many scattered, fragmented pieces of his memories? Chongming had told him that during the event of the revival of all magic, the moment the tide wound back in reverse, Xiaoji had used the Luohun bell to send their memories of the past 3 years into. It was only because of Xiangshu's remaining dragon power inside his body, which also entangled with his Hun and Po, that the memories had been suppressed. But, Chen Xing would occasionally see Xiangshu having a puzzled expression on his face. This, which seemed to happen when they were doing something that they had also experienced together during the first time around, would always immerse him in his jumbled, disordered memories. For this reason, Chen Xing had also specifically looked for an opportunity to privately discuss the matter with Xian and Feng Qianjun. Everyone's opinion was the same: since it's possible for him to remember, just let him remember on his own, don't force him to remember as to avoid that method backfiring on him. It was just, Chen Xing sometime felt that Xiangshu got somewhat aggravated precisely because of this bizarre mash-up of the past and the present. While Xiangshu never opened his mouth to ask, he knew that once he did, Chen Xing truly might not be able to resist telling him. Since he really couldn't sleep, Chen Xing slowly got up in the dark. Groping about in the darkness as he went out and finally arriving at the side of the lake located outside the camp, he looked at the many stars reflected on the water, frowning and pondering over the matter. Shihai had snatched away the divine sword Akala blade, but while its power had increased compared to before, the heart lamp's power had also become stronger. The method of handling him the first time around, would it still be effective? There was no yin-yang mirror this time, but maybe, a new boundary could be set up to trap him in. Once inside, they could once more use the hurricane of light to blast away the resentment gathered in Shihai's body before activating the Luohun bell to collect his Hun and Po. As long as Shihai was executed, and they were able to retrieve the Devil Spear, they might be able to think of a way to let it slowly recover its original form and bring the divine weapon to meet Shu head-on afterward. But, first things first, they had to look for the Luohun bell. Xian's most important purpose for returning to Jiankang was to look for this magical artifact. Exorcist, a voice sounded from the other side of the lakeside. Stunned, Chen Xing looked up. He actually didn't notice that deep in the night where everything was dead silent, there would still be someone by the lake. Emerging from within the darkness, a figure dressed in a black robe appeared. It was none other than Murong Chong standing under the tree. Murong Chong. Chen Xing was slightly surprised. Can't sleep. Murong Chong, from several steps away, just silently fixed his gaze at Chen Xing. Raising his eyebrows and smiling at him, Chen Xing asked, "Since you're going back tomorrow, have you decided on what to do?" Murong Chong didn't answer Chen Xing's question, showing him a puzzled expression and instead murmuring, "This is the first time that you and I have conversed with each other, but why do I keep getting this kind of familiar feeling? Have we ever become acquainted previously?" After hesitating for a moment, Chen Xing smiled and replied, "You can consider that we're fated to meet each other. Is it not a good thing?" Murong Chong just remained silent. After a long time, he suddenly spoke, "I dreamt of you." In an instant, Chen Xing's heart trembled. Murong Chong continued, "Exorcist, can you interpret dreams?" Chen Xing was nervous for a long time before he finally asked him, "What was I doing in your dream?" Murong Chong replied as he gazed into the other side of the lake, "Numerous times, I dreamt of a large river in which you and I were standing on this side, just like at this moment." Chen Xing recalled that one night before the revival of all magic when he and Murong Chong stood on the bank of the Fei River after Xiangshu had left. "They say," Murong Chong said in a low voice, "a river appearing inside one's dream indicates an omen of life and death. What's on the other side of the shore?" Chen Xing asked. "An army," Murong Chong supplied. "A seemingly endless army of Qin." Even at that time, you were still a stranger to me. Your hand was emitting light as you galloped your horse to cross the river, and I followed behind you, sword in hand, as I went to kill Fujian. Chen Xing was clear that this must be the Battle of Fei River. Apparently, even though time had been rewound, everyone still retained some related memories to some extent. Remembering that day when he parted with Murongchang, Chen Xing actually didn't know where he had gone afterward. At that time, he was so preoccupied with saving Xiangshu that he had no time to think about it. What happened after that? Chen Xing couldn't help asking him. After that, Murongchang, looking at his and Chen Xing's reflections in the lake, said in a daze, someone in the rear shouted, "Defeat the Qin army," and they all began to trample on one another. I killed Fu Rong with the sword before continuing to rush through the Forbidden Army's defense. I don't know why, but Tuoba Yan wasn't present then. Soon, Fu Jian and I met face to face. Maybe he didn't expect me to actually come. Chen Xing asked, "Did you kill him then?" After a moment of silence, Murongchang finally replied, "Yes. I pierced his throat with a sword because I didn't want to listen to his rubbish nonsense anymore." In that night of misery, Murongchang added, I was surrounded by the turmoil and chaos of war. Around me, soldiers were either fleeing or dying. From the opposite side of the river where I originally came from, Han people, whose number could topple the mountains and overturn the seas, were crossing to kill people, while I just stood there in the middle of the battlefield, standing next to his body. From his throat, a lot of blood spurted out, creating a red patch of land around him. He then opened his eyes wide, as if he was begging for my forgiveness. However, no words could come out of his mouth. Chen Xing carefully looked at Murongchang and suddenly noticed some faint, unnoticeable streaks of water on his face. At this moment, he didn't turn his head around and just slowly continued. He didn't say anything, but I know what he wanted to say. It must be, Feng Guang Er, Feng Guang Er. Zhen truly likes you. I always thought that when that moment arrived, there would be nothing but hate in my heart, he added. That day before I went to cross the river, I recalled a lot of things in whole. Those offenses he had committed against both my elder sister and me, our clansmen whom he massacred, as well as those times during my childhood when I was held by him. The shudder that I felt no matter where or when, just like how shadows were everywhere in the deep palace, they were ever present. It was to the point where just hearing his footsteps could evoke my memories. Yet I don't know why, Murongchang turned his head to look at Chen Xing before continuing, that moment when he died, I just felt very tranquil. Afterward, from the direction in which you left, a sphere of light slowly brightened up, appearing just like the sun that rose in the battlefield, followed by white ashes surrounding the place as if they were snow. At that time, the passage of time seemed to have stopped, and only that lustrous snow kept falling down, forever never ending. It reminded me of the autumn close of that year when Shulakong took over as the great Chanyu, he said in a low voice. It was also snowing that time in Chi Le Chuan. Fujian brought me to the north to congratulate Shulakong. There were people all around the place, and I was the only one standing without company amidst the crowd. I wasn't familiar with anyone, and of course, I didn't want to get to know anyone either. Murongchang turned his head sideways to look at Chen Xing before continuing. After Fujian had finished his drink with Shulakong, he saw that I was still all by myself in the corner, so he came over and told me, let's go, Zhen will take you to go skiing. Then, carrying his shield on his back, he took me to the Yin Mountains. Chen Xing smiled and said, sledding? I've also played that. N. Came Murongchang's faint reply. With whom did you play with? Just like on the Han's autumn deity, where people use moonshell as a symbol for let us follow and accompany each other for life, there is also a custom among the Teals. If snow falls on the day of the autumn close, each warrior can then carry their shield and invite their beloved to go sledding in the mountains. Chen Xing said in disbelief, so it's like that, ma. The first slide, Chong nodded before continuing in whispers, serves as a way to tell the other person I like you, while the second one acts as a means of acceptance of their feelings from the receiving party. And then, if the beloved proposes to slide together for the third time, it is to let the whole Yin mountain ranges bear witness, together with flying snow that sprinkles upon their heads, that they agree to be together until death do they part. Chen Xing. Looking at Chen Xing, Chong went on, standing on that battlefield full of falling, lustrous snow, for some reason, all I could think about was that one day. Even after I woke up, those memories were still clear and impossible to get rid of. There was a moment of silence between the two. Chen Xing's mind had long floated elsewhere, but Chong still continued, they say you're an exorcist, a person who has gotten a glimpse of the heavenly law. Can you tell me, what is the meaning of this dream? Returning to his senses, Chen Xing instead answered him with another question, if this dream comes true, will you still be able to draw out your sword and take his life? Of course I can, replied Chong. Chen Xing just shrugged, meaning, isn't it all there is to it? Why should you bother with it, any? After thinking for a moment, Chong shook his head in frustration before turning around to leave the lakeside. However, all of a sudden, Chen Xing extended his hand and, grasping Chong's wrist, injected the heart lamp into his body. In an instant, Chong's 3 Hun and 7 Po, surging in a manner similar to a tide, shook out a trembling sound. Chen Xing felt that deep inside Chong's heart, a speck of black fire was burning, yet under the illumination of the heart lamp, it had nowhere to hide. Soon, it was expelled until there was practically nothing left. Don't be scared, said Chen Xing softly, I understand. Pulling Chong to himself, Chen Xing reached out his hands and gently hugged him. Chong wearily let out a sigh. He said no more and just turned around to leave, while the remaining Chen Xing just stood by the lake unmoving. Several people departed the next day, each going their own way. Princess King He followed Chong back to Pingyang, while Xiangshu brought Chen Xing and Xiaoshan to Qi Le Chuan. Changing his course, Feng Qianjun trailed along the Great Wall to the northwest. Xian and Feng Qianyi turned eastward, avoiding the Qin army as they headed to the south. After a few more days on their journey to the north, Chen Xing, who basically had nothing else to do all day long, practically begged Xiangshu to teach him how to do mounted archery. Why are you always so noisy in wanting to learn archery? Xiangshu was puzzled. Stubbornly, Chen Xing replied, no reason, I just want to learn. Quickly teach me. Xiangshu couldn't persuade him otherwise, and thus, had no alternative but to personally teach him whenever they were at rest and camping. Holding him from behind, Xiangshu taught Chen Xing how to draw a bow, release an arrow, and adjust his posture. At first, since Chen Xing's archery was practically a hideous mess, Xiangshu mocked, go keep shooting at the target next door. However, when he came back after walking away for a while, he saw Chen Xing still practicing with no intention of giving up. Every day, except when they were in a hurry to travel further, Chen Xing would practice shooting from horseback. Days later, when they were on the road, Xiangshu urged his horse forward and went to accompany him in his practice. While galloping on his horse, he told Chen Xing to prepare his bow and arrow and use him as a practice target. Change the target to a wooden pole ba. Chen Xing said, I'm afraid of hurting you. If you hit the corner of my clothes, Xiangshu rushed to Chen Xing and said, Gyuwang will make you the great Chan Yu. Come. Chen Xing. Clamping his legs on both sides of the horse's abdomen, Xiangshu turned away. When two riders come across each other, the coward loses. Rein back your horse, let the stirrup go, and turn around. Xiangshu feigned a move, though he didn't shoot his arrow and instead frowned. If Gyuwang really shot the arrow now, you would have fallen off your horse and been trampled to death. Chen Xing said, I'm afraid of hitting your horse. If you hit the great Chanyu's horse, Xiangshu replied, Gyuwang will let you be the horse. Chen Xing, what kind of crap is that? Galloping on his horse, Chen Xing chased Xiangshu for a long time before drawing his bow and releasing his arrow. Yet when the arrow flew over, Xiangshu simply turned his horse in an agile manner to dodge it. Because Xiangshu came leaving no shadow and went creating no wind, Chen Xing spent the majority of the time just tracking him, only for him to show up behind himself a moment later. Use your ears. Xiangshu knitted his brows. Listen to the sound of horses' hooves. You keep looking and looking and looking, you only know how to notice things by looking at them. Are you an idiot? Chen Xing. Xiangshu, if you want to be a marksman, go cover your eyes first. Like this. And thus, Chen Xing tied a black cloth over his eyes. His rosy lips and high nose bridge were left exposed, making Xiangshu stare at him in a daze for a good moment without saying anything. Xiangshu. Chen Xing probed, tense. Xiangshu was irritated at once. Here. Like this, 7 consecutive days passed. At this time, Chen Xing finally shot out an arrow. After everything, he was able to calculate the distance in advance, and the arrow flew towards Xiangshu who was on horseback. The moment he shot the arrow, Chen Xing immediately knew that his aim was accurate, but since he was afraid it would hurt Xiangshu, he yelled out at once. Get out of the way, ah! Chen Xing shouted. However, while galloping his horse at high speed, Xiangshu just agilely raised his hand. With 2 fingers he clasped and stopped the arrow before proceeding to swing his arm and throw it away. It flew toward the ground, landing nailed to the ground 10 steps away. Pay attention to the enemy's shoulder, Xiangshu said, and the look in their eyes. Pay attention when the enemy's legs clamp the horse's abdomen and their lower back exerts up, those will give a hint of their drawing direction and shooting target. Oh well. Chen Xing thought, sure enough, the so-called first under heaven is not just an empty title. Even after the Dinghai pearl is gone, he's still so damn powerful. Make the horse stir up dust and fire the arrow with the sound as your guide, Xiangshu said. When an opportunity to blind the enemy's line of sight appears, release arrows in rapid succession by following the sound. Regardless of the other party's movements, try to injure the enemy by an arrow first. If they get hit, their movements will turn sluggish, and sooner or later, they won't be able to preserve their small life. Lower your bow. Xiangshu went past behind Chen Xing. You're drawing it too high. After leaving the Great Wall and crossing the prairie for thousands of li, they had almost arrived in Chuan. In the height of summer, the flowers of the prairie bloomed like colorful brocade, with rivers appearing similar to girdles made of jade. For a moment, Chen Xing threw all of his worries to the back of his mind, recalling that the first time he had gone north, his entire mind had been filled only with, only 3 years left, after 3 years, I'll die, what should be done now, is there still time? But now, standing on the carriage, he only felt that heaven and earth were so vast, he still had many years to live, and there was also Xiangshu by his side. This was the happiest thing that could ever happen. One afternoon, at one side of the convoy, Xiao Shan suddenly jumped down from the carriage and shouted, Chi Le Chuan! Chi Le Chuan! The Hu people caused a commotion, they were home. Xiao Shan kept shouting all the way, but he stopped at the carriage at the front of the convoy. He turned around and yelled anxiously, Chen Xing! Gig! Chi Le Chuan! Xiangshu looked into the distance, and instantly, his expression changed. He got off the carriage and mounted his horse. Chen Xing spotted that there was a curl of warning smoke signal rising in the distance, and the gathering area of the Hus under the Yin Mountains was also deserted. Chen Xing's heart trembled at once, and he shouted, Xiangshu! Wait! After turning past the last mountain gorge of the prairie, Chi Le Chuan, surrounded by peaks on 3 sides, appeared before his eyes. There were tents in a mess everywhere. Seeing this, the cruel scene that he saw the first time around after it was ravaged by the army of drought fiends suddenly flashed through Chen Xing's mind, darkening his vision almost completely. Shouting one after another, the Hus galloped their horses and rushed to the Qi Le Covenant's dwelling. Xiang Shu surveyed his surroundings in a daze from the back of the horse. It was as if the place had been thoroughly pillaged, fences were destroyed, tents were overturned, clothes were scattered in all directions, and many places were on fire. But fortunately, there were no dead people. Chen Xing looked around and said thank God in his heart. However, at the same time, it also made him more tense. What if they have been turned into drought fiends? He dared not think any more, but Xiao Shan had already run to the eastern part of Qi Le Chuan and arrived in front of the creek. Che Lufeng. Xiang Shu's voice resounded throughout the empty, abandoned Qi Le Chuan. Shi Moken. Xiang Shu's voice was echoed back by the mountain ranges. Cautiously, Chen Xing investigated the majority of the tents before shouting, Xiang Shu. Don't be nervous. There's no blood stain. It wasn't a raid. Xiao Shan shouted, come quick. Chen Xing. Chen Xing urged his horse with Xiang Shu and the rest keeping pace behind him. Xiao Shan used his claw to hook a corpse from the river while the puppy on the side kept barking woof, woof, woof. In the summertime, the corpse had rotted almost completely, leaving a few strands of rotting flesh hanging from the bones. Wearing strange armor, it continued to struggle. The Hus let out a big shout one after another. It was a drought fiend stuck on a piece of broken wood. This was perhaps one of many drought fiends that had gotten washed away while crossing the creek. Do you need help? The phoenix flew in and landed gracefully on the back of the horse. Not for the time being, Chen Xing said. You go ba. Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu looked at that red bird that seemingly appeared and disappeared at random before looking at Chen Xing again. This armor. Xiang Shu identified the armor style. As Chen Xing pressed his hand on that drought fiend's forehead, the heart lamp flashed a brilliant light that penetrated the corpse's body. The drought fiend immediately quieted down, completely dying. Achillean armor, said Chen Xing. How did you know? Xiang Shu was flabbergasted. For a moment, Chen Xing had unexpectedly forgotten to mind his words and quickly tried to find an excuse to dodge the bullet. But then, Xiao Shan saw that there was something moving on the opposite bank. He waded across the river, carrying the dog to the opposite bank. Everyone followed him and crossed the creek, only to see a huge white wolf carrying a black animal on its head, seemingly having been waiting for them. Lu Ying said, that white wolf opened its mouth, to tell you not to go back to Karasha right away and instead deal with the drought fiends first. Lu Ying has created a defensive wall made of dream power to seal off the entire Karasha, so it shouldn't be in danger for the time being. Chen Xing, you can talk. White mane. Xiao Shan shouted and ran toward that white wolf, hugging its head and touching the hair on its neck. Crouching on the ground, the white wolf raised its hind leg and scratched its ear before saying, because the revival of all magic made everyone regain their mana. That strange animal slipped down from the wolf's head and clumsily crawled toward Chen Xing. Yi. Chen Xing recognized it, it was a bay. The last time he had come to Qi Le Chuan, he seemed to have seen it in the Yin Mountains. Raising his front paws, the bay stood upright as it scrutinized Chen Xing before moving his head to look at Xiang Shu. It's them. The bay, unexpectedly, also opened its mouth and asked a question. Yes, answered White Mane. Come follow me ba. You are Shulakong. The bay suddenly said. I've seen you before, you've grown up so big. Xiang Shu had unbelievable plastered all over his face. Having grown up this big, this was the first time he heard a wolf and a bay speaking in a human language. If it was before, he would have beaten them to death without saying anything else. However, he had already heard a bird speak before. Moreover, he was also the protector martial god, thus, he could only try his best to restrain his astonishment and just nodded. Chen Xing said, "Last time, thank you." "Ah, wait, you should have also forgotten. The Bei Yao." That Bei looked strangely at Chen Xing before saying, "Your clansmen have already fled to Karakoram. Come with us Ba." Since the Hu people on the opposite bank couldn't hear them, Xiang Shu turned around and signaled them with a whistle. And so, the army began to cross the river. The wolf and the Bei then turned around and dove into the sea of grass. At the end of summer, Karakoram stood mighty amidst the barren wasteland. Gazing into the distance, it gave a kind of bleak, desolate feeling. On all sides, the earth was filled with rocks and gravel, vegetation only thinly spread across it, and the turbid Orkhon River, its water brimming with silt, slowly flowed across outside of the city. Compared to Chi Le Chuan, this was yet another lifeless sight. The first time Chen Xing had stayed in Karakoram, he had still been baffled by the fact that the people chose to live in Chi Le Chuan instead of living in a readily available city. But just now, he finally understood it had been a cold winter at that time, with the pure white snow covering all the barren land. Once the snow melted, it could be seen that Karakoram was like a huge graveyard. The grass had turned dry, rivers had become mere streams, forests had been reduced to just sparse trees, mountains were left abandoned, it could no longer provide the people with their survival needs. Karakoram was tightly guarded, there were many defenders keeping watch at the top of the city wall, and scout eagles were sent out to investigate all directions. The wolf and the Bei took the lead to hurry to the city front. As Xiang Shu urged his horse to get near, people on the city wall immediately raised a cry. "The Great Chanyu is back! Great Chanyu!" The whole city immediately stirred up a commotion. The city gate was opened at once, and two men led the army to welcome him. A young voice, which reminded Chen Xing of his psychological trauma when he heard it, shouted, "Shulakong, you've finally returned." Che Lufeng rushed out with his horse, while Xiang Shu simply halted his horse and looked at him from a distance. The moment he saw Che Lufeng, Chen Xing was slightly surprised. "This guy isn't wounded this time." "He is." "So that means, a lot of things have indeed changed." When Xiao Shan took a glance at Che Lufeng, he also recalled something and said, "It's him." "What's up with him?" Chen Xing asked in a low voice. Xiao Shan said, "He's still alive." Confused, Chen Xing replied, "Of course wait. The first time, Che Lufeng was wounded by you." Xiao Shan nodded and looked at Chen Xing, seemingly thinking. After a moment, he said, "I saw him talking to a drought fiend." Chen Xing. Chen Xing hadn't known Xiao Shan the first time he had come to Chi Le Chuan, and when Che Lufeng had fled back bearing his wounded, scratched belly, he only thought that it was a wolf attack. But now, it could safely be assumed that it had been Xiao Shan. After the tide of time had been reversed, the first thing Xiao Shan did when he recovered his memories was to inform Lu Ying, who told him to go south to Chang'an at once to look for Chen Xing. In other words, since Xiao Shan had left the north, naturally, there was no one to attack Che Lufeng, making the current him free of any injuries. What drought fiend? Chen Xing had actually forgotten to inquire Xiao Shan about this matter in detail the first time around. After all, Xiao Shan hadn't been able to speak properly before. Xiao Shan leaned forward to Chen Xing's ear and said in whispers, "Aruran." "Chen Xing." "Zhou Zhen, it must be Zhou Zhen." Chen Xing, after deliberately falling behind to ask Xiao Shan about the whole story in detail, finally understood. The first time, before the autumn close festival, Xiao Shan, who had been banished by Lu Ying, had run into Zhou Zhen who had been meeting with Che Lufeng by Lake Barkal. The moment Xiao Shan appeared, Che Lufeng and Zhou Zhen had both tried to dispose of the child so he couldn't divulge any secrets. Who would have thought that Xiao Shan was not to be underestimated? He felled Che Lufeng in one strike, but upon seeing this, Zhou Zhen immediately withdrew and left, prompting Xiao Shan to chase after him. As he went, he heard the Rurans rush over to save Che Lufeng. And thus, this was the whole story of why Che Lufeng had come back heavily injured and had his life saved by Chen Xing back then. Not long after that, after Xiang Shu and Chen Xing had left Qi Le Chuan for Karasha, Zhou Zhen met with Che Lufeng again, tempting him to drink the devil god's blood, which was the thing that led to that drought fiend chaos and the massacre of the whole Akele tribe. Chen Xing immediately scrutinized Che Lufeng. However, for the time being, he couldn't tell whether he had met up with Zhou Zhen or not this time around. End chapter.